Today, we do layout in a very different way. We do layout using CSS and something called divs. And those divs are the rectangles, and we use CSS to position those rectangles. I told you that all the attributes that we have for layout and for styling are available also in CSS. So if I say something can be a width of 23 pixels, I can also say that in CSS. I can also create rectangles, and I don't have to actually lay them out on the screen in the order that they're going to be laid out. And I can just say this one goes here, this one goes here, this one goes here, and this one goes here. It's a very nice, convenient, and simple way to do it. It still has some browser problems, right? Tables, finally, after 5 or 6 versions, everyone basically did tables the same way, so you can kind of count on the tables looking the same. With CSS, it's still some wrinkles that are being ironed out. But eventually, your CSS code is going to be more or less compatible across browsers. Okay, so that's the most popular way that we're going to do. It is powerful. It's definitely trickier than tables. Although once you start doing it, you'll never go back to tables, because tables, their problem is you end up with tables inside of tables inside of tables to get finer and finer grained control over your layout. And by the time you get to the 4th table, it's really hard to know where I am, what my context is. Right? So we're really, really concerned with the context of a tag. And when you have too much nesting, and the nesting is of a repeating variety, like a table inside a table inside a table, trying to figure out the context becomes very difficult. Okay, so what we're going to see later, if you're in the prototype option, is yet another thing called frames. And let me introduce you to frames. They're not very popular. They became unpopular because in a frame situation, we have different HTML files that show up in the different places on the screen, which often is very convenient. And that's why we're going to use it in this class, because we want to have different HTML files showing up at different parts of the screen. But on the other hand, if you put in a URL to one of those parts of the screen, that part of the screen is going to come up independent of all the other parts of the screen. So if you've ever clicked a link and what you see when you get to the destination seems like, well, where's the header, where's the banner, where's all the navigation around there? I'm only seeing content. Or even worse, I click on a link and all I see is the banner. Right? That's probably because they were using frames, and each of those segments of the screen is in a different file, and you made a link to an independent file outside the frame. Okay, we'll get more into that later, but I just want to give you an example of what frames look like. You can see that the frame syntax is very similar to the table syntax. Instead of table here, we have something called frame set, and right at the top you define what the rows in the table are going to be, and then inside there is each column. So this is a frame set that starts here and ends here. Inside the frame set, there's yet another frame set. And so instead of using row spans and col spans, we use embedded frame sets. Okay, so I don't want to really go through all of the syntax here. I just want to introduce it to you. But I think you can see that this is kind of complicated. You're going to have to look at this for a while. But you can, using what you've learned already in this class, get through this by understanding nesting. For example, we have a frame set here, and then inside the frame set is another frame set. And frame sets only define a set of rows and a set of columns. So here's the rows. We got 1, 2, 3 rows. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. And here we have 1, 2. Let me see here. Well, let me not go there, because I can't see it from this perspective. I'd have to look back to count all these things. But the idea is that this is markup just like anything else. It's a bunch of names, and if you figure out what all the attributes are, what the attributes mean, and what the nesting means for a frame set inside of a frame set, you'll be able to not only decode this frame set, but also create your own frame set that has a particular layout.